Hey everybody, welcome back to another episode of Cooking with Tovia. I'm going to show you guys how to make this wonderful white bread. This is going to make one loaf of white bread, and this recipe is quick and easy to make, perfect if you do not know how to bake at all. So this is perfect because, as you know, we're going through our crisis, so some things are hard to find. So I'm going to begin at the bottom of my stand mixer by adding 1.5 cups of all-purpose flour, or you could use bread flour. To that I added 2 tablespoons of sugar, and then I'm going to add in 3/4 of a teaspoon of salt. Now you can use any type of salt you want, just make sure it is a fine grain of salt. So to this I'm going to add instant yeast. Now I'm going to show you the package here. This is instant yeast. This is not active dry yeast. So with the instant yeast, it does not require for you to proof it, and it doesn't require a double rise. So this is perfect for when you're in a hurry. So I'm going to use my spoon here to just mix these ingredients together. And I have here like 1 cup of warm water. I'm using the SmartRo Thermometer. You can check them out in the description box. So my water is at 112 degrees. It's ideal not to have your water above 115 degrees Fahrenheit. You want it between 110 and 115. So I'm going to add my water. Just going to pour my water in. And I'm just going to begin. I have my dough hook on, and I'm just going to begin to mix it. I'm going to stop the machine. I'm going to just press all that flour from down the sides of my bowl to the center. Now, if all you had on hand was active dry yeast, you could certainly proof the yeast. Just proof the yeast and have a cup of water and with a couple teaspoons of sugar, and it'll wait 10 minutes. Usually you don't have to stir the two together, but wait 10 minutes, and if it's bubbly, you know that your active dry yeast is active. But with instant yeast, you don't have to do that. I know my instant yeast is good. It expires in 2 years, and I just purchased this. Okay, so I'm just mixing just to sort of mix everything together. So you're going to be using a total of roughly 3.5 cups to 4.5 cups of flour, or roughly 2.5 to 3.5 cups of flour, up to 4 cups. This really, you're going by feel. So I'm going to add my flour now, but I have a cup at a time, and I'm going to turn the machine on the second speed for right now. I'm just doing this just to get everything mixed. Okay, I'm going to stop the machine. Just use my spoon to sort of help it out. Just scrape it, everything towards the center of the bowl. I'm just going to crank up the speed for a moment just to encourage everything to combine better. So now what I'm going to do is I need to touch the dough. So the dough is fairly wet. As you see, it's really sticking to my fingers. You see it's dripping off the dough hook, so we know that the dough is far too wet. So it's ideal to add just a little bit of flour at a time, because you can always add flour, but you can't take it out. So it's ideal to add it slowly. The measurements may be different depending on your environment, so you really have to go by feel. So I'm just going to slowly continue adding flour until the dough is no longer sticking to my fingers, and it sort of remains sort of clean on the side of my bowl. I'll show you what I mean in a few moments. Now before I get all that flour added in, there's one more thing we have to add, and that is the shortening. So that's 1 tablespoon of shortening. If you don't want to use shortening, you can use lard. If you want to use lard, you can use vegetable oil, butter, coconut oil, whatever type of oil you like to use. But ideally, because this is an old-fashioned bread during the hard times, we typically use lard or shortening. So the dough is beginning to come together. So I'm going to just scrape everything for a moment here, just to encourage everything to come together. So it's sticky, but it's not sticking to my hand. This is ideal. So I'm going to just mix this on low speed now. I'm just going to knead it on low speed for about 3 minutes. So we'll be back in about 3 minutes. Let's just go for about 3.5 minutes, and I just want to show you the dough is nice and smooth. So you don't have to knead the dough very long. Now, if you don't have a stand mixer, you're doing this by hand, you just want to knead it for about 4 minutes. So what I'm going to do is just take a clean, damp cloth, and I'm going to cover this, and I'm going to just let this sit for about 20 minutes. Now, if you're using active dry yeast, you want to cover this. You use a damp cloth, you can use a saran wrap, but you need to let it go and rise for about an hour until it's doubled in size. This is only if you're using active dry yeast. So this has been sitting for 20 minutes and I just uncovered it. So I'm going to just use my fingers to press down the air. So you see it rose just that much in 20 minutes, and this is instant yeast. So if you're working with active dry yeast, you will definitely need to punch down the dough after about an hour and a half, or when it doubles. So I'm just pushing all of the air out of the dough, and I'm just pressing the dough into the bottom of my loaf pan. I didn't grease it or anything. Okay, so I got this pressed into my baking pan here. So I'm going to cover it, and I'm going to let it rise for about 30 minutes. And I'm going to preheat my oven to 400 degrees Fahrenheit. So it's been about 35 minutes, and I'm going to uncover it, and you see it rose quite a bit. So my oven's been preheating at 400 degrees Fahrenheit. So I'm going to put this in the oven, and I'm going to reduce the temperature to 350 degrees Fahrenheit. And we're going to bake this for about 25 to 35 minutes. So my bread is baked. It took about 31 minutes for it to bake, and I used my thermometer to take the internal temp, and the internal temp was at 195, which is perfect. So I'm just taking some butter and I'm just rubbing it across the top here, and the bread is still fairly warm. Now ideally you want to let your bread set for at least a good few hours before you go and cut into it. But because this is live camera, I'm going to go ahead and cut into it and show it to you guys. So my pan is still pretty hot. So I'm going to go ahead and change the angle here so you guys can get a good view. So I have my serrated blade knife, and you see it's a really beautiful loaf. So I typically turn my bread upside down, and I use my serrated. Let's cut it down the top. So I just try to cut them the same size. Now, if you let the bread cool, it will soften a bit. See, beautiful on the inside. Now, once it cools, it will definitely have a better crumb. But I cut into it while it's still hot. Okay, so there you have it, how to make delicious homemade white bread. And this is perfect for beginner bakers. Please add this video to your playlist, and don't forget to subscribe. Thank you for watching.